If you grew up in the 90s, there's one thing that ruled the world, and that was Britpop and Cool Britannia. In the 90s, there was nothing more popular than British music. It ruled the world. If you're around in the mid to late 60s to early 70s, mid 70s, then it was Bruce Lee. He was the man that ruled the world when it came to popular culture. It was absolutely down to the man in yellow with his black stripes. Kung Fu led to Japanese karate and Chuck Norris, and from there it led into the love of all things Japanese. So for the late 70s, 80s and then into the 90s, nothing could beat Japan on the world stage for its export of its culture. Everything was Japanese. Even in soap operas, people had katanas on the wall, Japanese little Zen gardens. Everything was Japanese, and it was Japanese led for a good solid decade, if not a decade and a half. But then bit by bit, Japan has faded into the background. It seems to have taken a back step, or has it? Let's get into all this, but if you would like to help me, get yourself a copy of Zen and the Samurai Sword. Pre-order now, or it's out if you're watching this in the future. Or you can buy me a coffee, just screenshot this, but both links will be below. Right, let's get into it.
Hello, I'm Stephen Nojiri from Fukushima-ryu, the Tada and the Samurai Traditions of the Tada Genji channel. Anthony Cummins has asked me to talk about the topic of why is Japan popular, but the samurai are not popular? And so I'll dive straight into the answer. The primary answer to that question is entertainment. Japan is popular for entertainment purposes, not cultural or historical purposes. And for that reason, samurai as entertainment is an industry, but samurai as an object of historical study or cultural study is not very popular right now.
Right, Stephen is the author of a few books. I'll link him below as well to his YouTube channel. Now he's also running some extracurricular samurai activity, so wait till the end of the video or skip to the end of the video to hear what he's got to say. He's going to run extra bits. Do you want to join him?
The other thing that you have to also remember is that most of the stuff that makes Japan popular right now is only from the last 100 years or so. Damen, anime, manga, taiko drumming, that stuff is not, it doesn't predate the restoration. It doesn't come from samurai times. So, let that settle for a second. Like Japan is popular, but Japan is very popular for things that come way after samurai time is done.
This has always been true. So, for example, Aikido was not there when the samurai were born. Judo, not there when the samurai were born. Karate, not even Japanese. All the things that became popular are not samurai Japanese martial arts. You then, of course, get places like ninjutsu became a big trend, but that is a 1950s invention, the ninja martial arts. So what you find actually is what we have here is not a love, even at the height, we don't have a love for samurai teachings. We have a love for the entertainment that is samurai. People like to go along and enjoy a samurai experience. But actually, when you show them what real samurai stuff is, interest level drops wholly.
And since I had just mentioned anime, manga, etc., let's talk about that for a second. Samurai as entertainment, fictional concepts of samurai versus ninja, all that bullshit, that sells. That's super popular. That's popular among Japanese people. That's popular among non-Japanese people. That sells. Video games sell. Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yotei, both of those games are full of shit. They are completely historical clusterfuck blunders. Let's be honest. But people love them because they're fun, because it's entertainment. The problem is people can't seem to comprehend that entertainment is not valid historical source.
So this is a major thing here. This is a major thing to be aware of. Some of us, like me, I come for the pure history of it. Not only the history, like this clan did that, I'm not even that interested in that, is what did the samurai do? How do you tie the sword handle? How do you tie the cords? How do you tie the samurai? How do you start a fire? How do you carry food? What do you do? All of those questions I've got. How do you check the stars? Move an army, right? But you find a lot of people, if you say to them, are you interested in samurai study? They are, but actually it borders on entertainment. So going to a dojo in the week or a sports hall, as much as it is a lovely thing to do, and then getting taught something from which was invented in the 1920s and 1930s, but which has a very samurai feel to it, a popular samurai feel. That is not samurai research. Even going to Koryu, which means old school samurai martial arts classes, tend to have a very big brush over them with the Meiji Restoration. Everybody's in the same uniform. Everybody bows to the Japanese flag. Everybody's wearing the same knot. Everybody's in line. It actually screams nationalistic front Japan 1920 to 1930, and not really anything to do with samurai. And then of course spouting samurai stuff out. So you've got to be careful here, because even if you believe you are doing it for the love of samurai, you're most likely doing it for entertainment.
And then it gets super ridiculous, because not all of you, but some of you go on to Reddit, Discord, YouTube comments, TikTok, Facebook, whatever, and you fight. You fight tooth and nail over alleged facts that is all bullshit. Like when the TV show Shogun came out, oh my goodness. Some of the bullshit that was everywhere. When Assassin's Creed with the whole Yasuke thing, bullshit, all of it. I call all of it bullshit. People fighting over alleged facts when honestly the total understanding of samurai culture is equivalent to dog shit.
So this is where the problem stems. Is people think, oh, so people think I'm going to get this information, and a lot of the time they get it from 1980s books. And I've been doing with my team a lot of translations of old documentation and a lot of pulling it together. And we've got loads of way to go here. In my lifetime, we are never going to finish the amount of documentation we need, but it's a start. But before that, people tended to, for example, take 47 Ronin. They actually quote as historical fact what is in essence a theatre play of 47 Ronin. It's like going to the Shakespearean play for Henry V and saying that was the history of it, or Macbeth, this is the history of Scotland, things like that. And while it's based on historical stuff, it's totally not historically real. And then people argue about, well, Shakespeare said this, and he, you're like, I don't think he was there. I don't think Shakespeare was actually there, on St. Crispin's Day and all this. So it's a real problem that people are throwing out facts which are not facts. And not only that, they really need to be reined in, and then especially from the core samurai martial arts community, where they're just running off wrong facts, and it shows. But they then mix that with, on this date, and they know this date, and this kanji, and you think, oh, is that real? Is that real? And myself, I've got to go through it and go, is that right? Is that not right? Blah blah blah.
But the criticism is not on your lack of total knowledge. The criticism is on the fact that most of the people fighting over this don't really care. They're fighting not because they have family connections or genealogical connections, family history, cultural connections. It's samurai history is not their history. Samurai culture is not their culture. Japanese culture is not their culture. They're fighting over it in the way that people fight over Star Wars details, or the way people fight over Lord of the Rings, or the way people fight over Star Trek. You fight over this as entertainment. It's like there's no difference between you fighting over samurai history and you fighting over Star Wars details. The way that people fight over the details of Star Wars is the same way you fight over samurai history. You don't really know or care or have a connection. You're fighting because it's entertainment for you. That's the issue.
So this stems down to, what are you doing samurai research for? I'm doing it because I have a burning desire. I don't know where it's from. I don't know where it came from. A burning desire to know and understand what the samurai did on what we like to call a phenomenological perspective. I.e., you go in, You see, so for example, if you want to know what it was like to live in a castle, you go to a physical medieval castle and you walk through and you say, okay, the sun's on this side, and you go through, oh, and the great hall's there, so servants have to move there. Instead of just imagining it, you go through it. So the idea with me is I've put together Natori Ryu, I've put together trying to get the swords and ships sorted, because I want to physically feel, got in the cold, start a fire with samurai tools. I want to physically feel what it's like to be a samurai. I don't want to be a samurai. I would like to know what it was like to be a samurai, and then put that into my books for you guys to then take it as entertainment or history, but you've got to know the difference between the two. And I myself am guilty of doing this. That's not entertainment. That's entertainment. Okay? That's not entertainment. That's not entertainment. But a few of them are, because there are people who don't mind it. I want to feel like a modern samurai. I'm not a samurai. I want to go through and have a quick pretend to be a samurai. Okay. And I don't mean pretend in a negative way. I mean, take some of the samurai issues, to heart and go forward with them. Versus, I am going to study star charts. I am going to work out where the moon was on such a date. I am going to work out the date differences between certain scrolls. All that me and Stephen and a few others do. That's the difference. Which one are you?
So let me try to tell you a story that's kind of an analogy to all this. So before I became Stephen Nojiri, I was just some half-blood, and I used to grass dance at powwows.
I don't know what Stephen means by grass tents. I don't know. But basically, a powwow is Native American, Native Indian, American dances, etc., gatherings. And Stephen is pretty much of the first American national people, what they call Indians. He's a Native American Indian for all intents and purposes. And he married into a Japanese family.
So there was one powwow where I was at, and I'm sitting there, and it's in between songs and whatever, and then this whole group of Kaneshao boys come in. Hey, they're dressed up in fancy rigs and grass and southern tradition, northern they're all, and their shit looks good too. And I'm just like, yeah, what is that, So I go over there and I talk to them, diplomacy, try to, bridge worlds, so to speak. Well, what is this? And it turns out, so they're a Boy Scout troop, and apparently they have a badge or something. I guess they have something they have to do at the Indian dance. Okay, fine, whatever. So they're there, and I'm talking to them. But there's the grass dancer ones. They're fighting amongst each other over the details of their regalia. And then I'm like, well, what's your problem? Because I grass dance for real, like legit grass dance. So let me ask me. And then they're like, oh, no, 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 our Boy Scout book says this, and our Scoutmaster says that, and this and this. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. I grass dance for real. Like, I do competitions and shit. Like, I grass dance. So you can talk to me, and I will tell you what is real and what is bullshit and what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. But they just were like completely disinterested in what I had to say. They were interested in fighting amongst their knowledge of it, and their knowledge of the topic was bullshit. And so that is why I'm saying, so the lesson here is that's the same thing going on with the samurai. Samurai as entertainment is bullshit, but it is very popular bullshit. People love it. People invest lots of time, effort, and energy into the bullshit, fake samurai stuff, and they're just not at all interested in the authentic samurai history. So hopefully this story clicks in your head. You can understand where I'm going with it.
Oh, grass dance. Okay, right. Grass dance. Hee-haw! I wish you people would use D&T correctly, you Americans. So, grass dance. Dare I do it? Oh, no, I won't do it. Right. Because you get arrested for things like that nowadays. Right, so, but Stephen's right. You get a lot of people with, so they're coming into samurai stuff, and what do you want to do? You either play computer games, that's it, you play computer games. And there's no doubt in Shogunate's talked about it, we've all talked about it, computer games are popular. And we in the martial arts research community have tried to piggyback off the popularity of computer games. Doesn't work. Cannot do it. You can get lots of hits on a video saying this is some information from this, but you cannot transfer those people across into let's get a kimono and let's do it, or let's study scrolls and let's study ancient Japan. Can't be doing it. The same with, cutesy Japanese little crosses and little cross eyes and you just can't pull those people across. But that is getting way more popular. Little pink rabbits, little white plush toys, and little stickers and manga. Manga is now everywhere. You cannot get those people across into the serious side of samurai study. In the 1980s, you could do that. Not only that, samurai books were selling at a phenomenal rate. Ninja books were selling at a phenomenal rate, all with nonsense in them. Most of it was nonsense. And I had to scrap my entire knowledge at the age of about 30 and go, I don't know anything. Start again, because it was all nonsense. And apart from this clan goes here, that clan goes there, which is, you know, you can do the battle of the year of this. You know, that's very good and well, but that's done. That's platform done. That's what we do. We know that. The next step is let's find out. Let's move it. History has moved from, you know, on the October 1066, this happened, and you're like, and King thinking moved here. Now we've got to the different nitty gritty of it. Archaeology and history are fused together to give us this. We need a new word between archaeology and history to give us this new word of this grit ground understanding of the battle from the camera's point of view.
So Japan is popular for entertainment purposes, and that's fine. So let me round this back and say it's okay if you like samurai because of entertainment. It's okay if you like Japan because of entertainment. Japan needs the tourism. Japan needs that interest. So that's fine. But now let me go back to that story I shared about them Boy Scouts, though, because this is the crux of the point. This is the crux of my answer to Anthony's question. Japan is popular for entertainment purposes, and samurai is popular for entertainment purposes. Shinobi are popular for entertainment purposes. And what a lot of you guys find entertaining is to fight each other over piss poor information. If you don't have a family connection to the samurai or a cultural connection to samurai, like you're not part of a family that was samurai, you don't know any Japanese people, you've never been to Japan, that's still okay. That's fine. The problem is when you don't have any of those connections and your information that is coming mostly from the internet, from video, like from chat forums, from video games, from movies, Facebook posts, that kind of shit. Okay. And then what happens is you guys get a really terrible. I know this is ironic, of course, because this is a YouTube video, so why should you be listening to me? And you're understanding my point now. So the problem is that you have a lot of you guys have terrible foundational, your base knowledge is not very accurate. But you love to fight over that information. So not only is samurai and the ninja popular for movies and video games and sales, but it's also incredibly popular because you guys like to fight each other over this bad information. Because since I've sort of been working with Anthony, like we've been sort of working on and off on projects for a long time now, over 10 years, I have seen the bullshit that a lot of you put into public forums and on videos and on Facebook and stuff. I've seen it. All right. So I know how aggressive and ridiculous some of that stuff can get. So that's my point, though. The story about these Kaneshao boys at the powwow is that they were more interested in fighting each other over. So none of those boys had valid, authentic knowledge. They had bad information, but they were more interested in fighting each other over the bad information. Who's king of the bad information? That was entertaining to them. That was what they wanted. They were not at all interested in the valid, authentic information I was trying to offer them. It was more entertaining to them. It was more important to them to fight between themselves than it was to actually get the real information.
This is actually not the fault of. It's not really the fault of the people, or you guys out there who Stephen's talking about. It's because most of the information you get is from qualified Japanese instructors. Now, qualified annoys me here. This really annoys me. Qualifications seem to add to authenticity, and I'm going to be honest with you, in that normally it works if you're a builder or you're a ship's captain or you're flying a plane. Try getting qualifications. But the problem is there is no regulating body for Japanese history samurai qualifications, and most people's qualifications come from zero, or they are from a Koryu, which means old samurai martial arts school, which go back to samurai time. But the problem is, and I've had this before, you get historical and traditional. Historical information is what historians dig out. If I go to somebody who's part of a tradition, yeah, I'm struggling to think of one right now. You go to a person who's a part of a tradition and you ask them about their history. 99.9% of the time, they don't know the true history. It takes a historian to go in. I can give you an example. I went to Africa and we were with the Talensi tribe when I was in university, and we basically dug up a body and they said, that's our ancestor. This is a sacred site now. They didn't know it was there, and it was actually, turns out it was from Roman times, and those people were nowhere near there at Roman times. It was not their ancestor at all. And they said this, and you would believe that because they told it. There is no difference with Japanese martial arts. They will tell you this, that, the other, all this, which they don't know. They just don't know. And it takes a historian, Japanese, English, American, whatever, to dig in to get that. I'm not saying what they know on their qualifications are useless, but it must be. You can't take everything like that. I do disagree with Stephen here at one point. Some YouTube channels now are getting superb, and you do find better information on YouTube channels than you do in a book. But it must always be somewhere you can trace the information to. So if you want to know, you must always be able to trace the information. If you say, my master told me in our school, then you have to say, which scroll of your school says that? Then you have to find the scroll, then you find the sentence, then you analyse it in context, then you look at the date, and you look at the transcription, and you go back through the scroll and to who originally wrote that scroll. Then you try and find, like I've done all this, then you go back on the internet and find or in the private collections or whatever, the oldest known copy of that, check each copy of transcription against changes, and you can say, I think that's correct. But you have to do all that, which we have done many, many times.
So we also have to be direct with something. Samurai history is still a pretty niche topic. It's a real specific topic. Even in Japan, the average Japanese person, the majority of Japanese people, don't come from samurai families. I mean, there's a saying in Japan that everyone in Japan has a samurai ancestor. And first off, that's not really true. While it may be probable that many families or many people might have one ancestor somewhere in their genealogical background who served as a samurai, the idea that everybody in Japan comes from a samurai is just probability wise is impossible. And a lot of people, again, they may have had one ancestor a long time ago who served as a samurai. They may have been picked up and retained, and then their side lost, and then they went on to be a farmer, and then that family was just farmers until the restoration. So again, you have to understand that most Japanese people do not come from samurai, not really, and many Japanese people just aren't really that interested in the topic.
So to highlight this, I've seen this loads of times in Japan. Basically, you get someone who says, oh, my name's a samurai name, and they might think that they had a samurai in their past, but they go to work, they live in a little flat. Then you get other families who have an Edo period building. It's full of documentation. They have a massive collection. They have swords, armor, scrolls, hanging paintings, religious items, and it's all been passed down to them and passed down to them. And you get those somewhere in the middle. So, for example, the Natori family, which I tracked down, all knew they were ex-samurai, but they didn't know they were part of the most famous ninja there is, Natori Masazumi, and they were literally direct descendants of him from the Shoninki. But they remember, they're old now. Some of them one of them's dead now, and the others are getting on there. But they remember World War II, being in the fields when the bombers came over in Wakayama and destroyed everything. So the house that they would have inherited and I could have visited was destroyed by American bombers as they went over Wakayama. And so they knew they were samurai. Their granddad always used to say, we are Natori, we are a samurai family, but it was eradicated in World War II. So they're left with nothing, and they live in their little house and little flat saying, we were a big clan. And then you get those who are still in control of clan, who things that survived the war that they still have got, and they say, yeah, this is our clan, or they've donated it to museums and it's got donated by this family. There's a big difference between that. There's also a difference, which Stephen didn't mention here, but I thought he would have done, is those people who left Japan before the war, before World War II. It's said, and I can't qualify this, but Stephen's information, that they are more Japanese than modern Japanese. And this is quite true, because Japanese people went through a massive social change, a big zeitgeist change, if you like, after World War II, and those who stayed behind probably kept older traditions. It's a big issue that nobody talks about today. Japan changed fundamentally when the Americans defeated them, and anything samurai-esque was very much put under, and they've reinvented the samurai in a pop cheesy family way, where you can go now and do ninja museums and samurai museums, and it is the most harmless thing, and they do not push the samurai side of it. Because let's look at the rape of Nanking. Yep, people say, oh, the Japanese soldiers were horrendous at the rape of Nanking, and they were, and you should see what they did. We're talking stomach vomiting stuff. And if you look at samurai history, they did the same thing. There's no difference between real samurai and the most heinous World War II soldiers versus what you think is samurai after the whitewashing of World War II, and everybody's wearing their same little uniform now because it was after that. Before that, that's what it started, and then afterwards they washed it all out with Aikido came. And it's funny how Aikido arrived, just developed after the war finished, and it's sort of got its peaceful era just after the war. Before that, if I remember rightly, it was Daito Ryu was a very heavy aspect of the system, and then after that, it was all Aiki flow. Yep, after that. And they ditched most of the horrific samurai stuff.
Okay, so that's pretty much my answer. That's pretty much it. So Anthony asked me, why is samurai history just unpopular, but samurai is popular? And it's samurai as entertainment, shinobi as entertainment. Japan, people don't care. Most tourists don't care about Japan. Not really. But when you go to Japan, so if you don't believe me, go to Japan during cherry blossom season, okay? Go to Sensoji Temple, okay? Go to Asakusa during cherry blossom season, and you tell me if the tourists give a shit about Japan or not. No, the answer is they don't. They go there because they want to take TikTok videos of themselves. They go there because it's the hot thing to do, it's the cool thing to do. But most tourists do not give a shit about Japan. It is very obvious when you're there that most of the people don't give a shit about the country. They're just there for TikTok purposes, basically, popularity purposes. It's hot, it's fashionable to go to Japan right now. And again, Japan is making bank on it, so it's fine, it's good. Japan will make a shit ton of money. Japan needs the money. But let's not bullshit. People are not going there because they love Japan or they have a connection to Japan. The vast majority of tourists go to Japan because it's entertainment. Entertainment. And that's the same reason why most people are interested in samurai. Entertainment. They like to look at the armor. They like to look at the samurai swords. Ooh, katanas, odachis, blah, 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 blah. Right? If I was to say, you're like, oh, I want to learn about the ninja. And I go, okay, well, sit down. I will teach you about the 13 generations of Nojiri and the Fukushima-ryu. And people say, fuck that. I want to learn about kasurigamas and fucking like climbing walls and black outfits and shit. And I'm like, okay, right? Because that's the shit you saw in a movie. That's the stuff you played in the video game. So because you saw it on a video game or you saw it in a movie, that's what you find compelling. You don't find the truth compelling. You find the fiction compelling. So when most people go to Japan, tourism's fine. Tourists are needed in Japan. But again, tourists don't go to Japan because they care about Japan. They go to Japan because it's entertainment. So rounding up my answer, Anthony, that's my answer to your question. Why is it that Japan is hot even though people don't seem to care about Japan? Why is it that samurai are hot and shinobi are hot, but nobody seems to really care? Because it's all entertainment. That's why. So we also have to be direct with something. Samurai history is still a pretty niche topic. It's a real specific topic. Even in Japan, the average Japanese person, the majority of Japanese people don't come from samurai families. I mean, there's a saying in Japan that everyone in Japan has a samurai ancestor. And first off, that's not really true. While it may be probable that many families or many people might have one ancestor somewhere in their genealogical background who served as a samurai, the idea that everybody in Japan comes from a samurai. It's just probability wise is is impossible. And a lot of people, again, they may have had one ancestor a long time ago who served as a samurai. They may have been picked up and retained, and then their side lost, and then they went on to be a farmer, and then that family was just farmers until the restoration. So again, you have to understand that most Japanese people do not come from samurai, not really, and many Japanese people just aren't really that interested in the topic.
So to round up now, and I'm going to leave you one last message from Stephen, but basically this comes from the fact that I have been running this YouTube channel for years, and we get and one of the major things I find that I get emails about, or I have had emails like this for a long time, is, Anthony, your information is excellent. Why are you not a bigger YouTuber? The answer to that is, I have no idea. So people come to me and get information, like big channels come to me for the History Channel, especially, History Channel and TV come to me. BBC have been to me. YouTube channels all over, big ones have been to me. And they've all been to me because I've got the information. And then people say to me, well, why are you not bigger? And the answer is, I don't know. And all I can say is, and the shogunate jumped in and said on this and said, actually, Japan is still big. And it made me rethink. And it is now a question of, I would believe Japan is still big. Like Stephen says, tourism is excellent. TikTok videos rule and all this sort of stuff. Getting that little hit of Japanese, attending a Japanese day. And then you get the people who are like doing a martial arts. But I'm going to be honest, there's very few people who do martial arts now. They really isn't. And the book sales, the amount of clubs that are out there prove it. You just can't find a good amount of Japanese martial arts clubs anymore. They used to be everywhere on every street corner, and they have just died. And even with resurgences like Cobra Kai, which was amazing, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Shogun, it is not transferring into A, book sales, but B, people openly discussing high-level samurai study on the internet. After The Shogun, all they did was talk about whether a guy was black was there, whether the white guy was there, whether this guy actually happened, what there is, same with Assassin's Creed. And they're valid questions. Was that guy samurai? Okay, let's ask that question. But the answer and the fighting over it, and it's such a small question. It's like, was Yasuke a samurai? Well, actually, in that time period, finding out who was and who wasn't a samurai is actually quite difficult. And most likely, but it doesn't really matter, he's going to be an armoured guy fighting alongside. He was literally hanging around with the Queen. So imagine if in the future somebody says, oh, there was this black guy hanging around with Queen Elizabeth. And was he a knight? But he is literally an armed guard who's in her. She loves him, not physically, but loves him being around. And she goes off to war. Imagine the Queen's gone off to war, and he battles and protects her. And it's like, yeah, but was he a knight? Was he part of the knighthood system? Like, is David Beckham a knight now, or Sir Christopher Lee? Well, he was still shooting bullets, and she was in a tank. Queen Elizabeth in a tank, and he's shooting bullets. Like, well, he might not have been a knight like that, but he was dressed as, he's in his full regalia shooting stuff. Do you know what I mean? So he's like, it's a silly question. So why didn't it give us so many questions of people like, oh, right, okay, well, what about this and what about that, and how do we do that with that system, and what about this? Why did that not come out of it? It just didn't. So what I'm going to do now is, if you stuck with us to the end of this video, I'm going to now leave you with Stephen Nojiri and a very quick advert from me. So here's Stephen with his Fukushima Ryu.
So now anybody who's watching who's interested on an update perchance on my own work, if you go to my channel, you'll see my most latest video goes into more detail. But here, I'll give you a brief summary. So right now, I am working on a private document called 13 Generations of Nojiri. It's going to go through the Nojiri family history, basically from me and my wife back to the 1500s, each generation, and it's basically every bit of data, every piece of information we can find for each generation is compiled into this document. All the other documents that we have, the original Fukushima Ryu scroll, genealogies, blood oaths, letters, genealogy charts, funerary, there's all kinds of stuff, as well as just any other document. So anything that's mentioned in the history, if we have a copy of it, then it's also compiled in. And it's going to be one giant collection of all the information and the original documents or copies if we don't have the original, one giant book, basically. And then that book will be passed down through future generations. Rather than each of these documents being passed down, it'll all just be passed down as one single collection. So, like the Fukushima Ryu scroll will be passed down in this collection. But the so why should anybody care? Well, most of you shouldn't care because you're never going to see the document. But the reason that you may care about it is because in doing this, I'm going to put out another book. I'm going to do a new translation of the Fukushima scroll. And I'm going to basically, if anybody follows my channel, you can get more information about this. But I'm going to do a new translation of the Fukushima scroll with much more accurate, better information. The gloves are coming off. You're going to get a you're going to get a much better version of the Fukushima Ryu in English with better commentary. Sacred Conspiracy was okay, but it should have been a lot better. There was a lot of stuff that was left out of it. But the new version, the new translation is going to be really good. So that's ultimately what you need to know. So privately is the 13 Generations book. Publicly will be a new Fukushima Ryu translation with a lot more accurate information.
Links will be below for Stephen. So there you go, guys. Hopefully that answers, well, it doesn't answer the question, but would like your opinion. Is Japan cool just for certain things, but samurai stuff is just not cool? And I don't mean samurai stuff like computer games. We're talking about people who are going to sit down and study the ways of the samurai. Now, my name's Anthony Cummins. If you really want to help me, and I mean really want to help me, get yourself an Audible book of this, Book of Bushido. Really helps, really helps. You've got a great deal on that. And the other one is you can pre-order my book, Zen and the Samurai Sword. But if you genuinely now watch this video and you've got to the end and you think, you know what, I actually want to start somewhere and I want to get away from the entertainment and go to the reality, honestly, we'll start with that. It's How to Be a Modern Samurai. It's set up for entertainment purposes, but it's a breakaway book. You read this book and then move on to the more complex things. So you read these books, you get from How to Be a Modern Samurai, and you can start reading the different books and the different ways we can pull together the history of the samurai. And you can join me in Natori Ryu. Just search it on the internet, you will find us there. You can join us, and we have newsletters and we have little groups and Discord groups and things like that. So there you go. My name's Anthony Cummins. Do follow Stephen Nojiri. He's got an excellent channel. He does excellent videos, and me and Stephen are sort of making an unofficial blood pact that we're going to try and stay secure in real samurai ways. He's gonna stay with his video style, but I'm gonna try and experiment more with videos that are gonna get higher hits with different cool things, but it's gonna be only will ever be based off real historical documents. So let's see if we can get it. I'm gonna try and stand across both sides, but we have to really do take heed of Stephen's word as that word that people do argue like it is a geek forum, like, and it does annoy me, that type of thing where the best of Dungeons and Dragons, the best of Star Wars, the best of Marvel, and he'd win that, and you can see the comments are really, really, really low brow and really bad, and it's based on information that's not very good. And it doesn't mean if you don't know the information, not cool. It's about how you process certain pieces of information. So even if you've got only a few bits of information, how do you process them? When you've got a lot of information, how do you process that? It's the same processing power. It's like a little computer chip, just clicks into the information. Yep, massive amount of information. A little computer chip does the same. A football field's amount of information, little computer chip. It's the processing power of your computer chip, not the random facts you have in your head that just are spinning about all over the place like a pinball machines. Yes, there you go. About like that. So that's where we're at. Right, my name's Anthony Cummins. That was Stephen Nojiri. We hope to see you again. Do follow us on both channels and have a good day.